Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Let's Talk. Plenty of things have actually happened in our world where we I didn't want to make another Let's Talk until we finished off what we were talking about last time. So instead, I've been kind of angling Let's Talks to be similar to Share Your Grins when it's convenient. So when E3 was happening, it was a share your grin, so whatever. But yeah, the reason why I wanted to wait, of course, is because of what we were talking about last time. Like I said, I feel like last time I did both okay but more worse than good when it comes to explaining the very thing that we were talking about, which was 12 Rules for Life. I've read the book now, well, let's say 3 times. Maybe. Some chapters I've read like 5 times, and then others I've only read like once, because I've already know that other shit, if that makes any sense. Anyways, the reason why I did so poorly last time, when it comes to explaining the rules of Jordan Peterson's book, by the way, that's what we were talking about last time. We were talking about Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I'm sure you've heard this many times throughout the last 2 or 3 years, where he made this book, 12 Rules for Life, which is just 12 rules to live by. But unlike every other self-help kind of book that kind of just says, put your head down, you grind your ass off, you'll get there one day, do it. This is how I made my million, and I'm nothing special, so you just gotta do what I do, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, unlike those, none of that is talked about in terms of financial gain or anything like that, really. He tells you these background things that will help you improve and just generally be a better person. At least that's what I get from it. There are these backbones for life, in which there are 12 rules to follow, to live by. Now, the reason why last time I was like, I didn't really do the greatest job is because I didn't get the specific wording of what they were correctly. So yeah, that's where I was just like, oh, people are going to be like, oh, you're saying all this wrong. And I'm like, well, yeah, probably. My bad also. My bad. Yeah, so this video is just gonna, I'm not sure how long it's gonna be. I'll try to condense it as much as I can. But I guess general thoughts before we go into like the life-changing rules. What I think about the book. My thoughts on the book were that it was just as amazing as I heard from everybody. Now with that being said, I know some people, I think it's different for you based on where you are in life. So if you find yourself to be a very chaotic person where everything in your life is in disorder and you can't control anything and you just feel like everything is just a mess, then this book covers a lot of that. And that's also one of the reasons why I think it's so helpful, is unlike all those other books that are all like gung-ho, push through your adversity. Jordan Peterson does a great job about going through the like nitty-gritty aspect of almost all of it. In fact, my only criticism for the book, which I've heard another person talk about, do a review of this book, PewDiePie back in the day, who did a review of this book as well, and I came to that same conclusion, weirdly enough. Anyways, but yeah, the reason why I think the book is really successful is because he goes through the effort of going through every nitty-gritty little thing to make sure you fully understand why it exists. So it's not just someone saying, hey, just do this and you'll be okay. It's not like that. It's like, do this because of these reasons. Do this because of this example. Do this because of this and this and this, and goes into the subconscious of it, goes through the reality of how it affects the world, goes into every little thing about morality, not morality, religion, all these other things. So basically, I love the book. Would highly suggest it to people who like improvement, and specifically improvement onto themselves. But my one criticism for the book, and the one thing that I felt, I mentioned this in the last Let's Talk as well, which is the one thing I thought I did a pretty good job of saying. But the one thing that constantly, and it's just, this is a personal preference kind of thing. I learn, and I thought I absorbed all the information incredibly well when it was in the realm of pseudo-reality. So what I mean by that is, again, when he gave examples for the what rule is it? I think it was rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. I believe that was the rule. To me, I like the example of him saying, okay, so this is what you should do. You should put yourself in this situation. Pretend you're sitting across from the other person and pretend you are the boss. and then hear that person out. And just by doing that, you realize how stupid it is for you to be very mean to yourself. If that is your employee and you've ever had a really shitty boss who's constantly telling you you're trash and not good and not worth anything, and you need to do this better and you could have done that better, and never rewarding you in the slightest, you can see how that's just a terrible toxic relationship where you'll barely improve and you'll stop trying. So just in that example, I was able to get so much out of it. But then there are chapters, and this is again just preference. Maybe some people would be like, this is the thing that spoke to me in a fundamental level and changed my entire perspective. Maybe. For me, it wasn't. For me, what was the most distracting and thing that I just couldn't dig into was when he goes to religion. And I have nothing against religion. But the examples got really conflated and just messy. Now, whether that's because they're from so long ago, from like back in like medieval times, which yes do have some sort of mirroring of today's world, but I just still felt like I couldn't even get into the headspace of really what he was talking about. I understood everything, it didn't do anything for me. It didn't make me remember that rule, and he did it quite a bit. In fact, there was one chapter I think specifically that I was just like, okay, that was what it was. It was I think it was the rule that was. And it sucks because it's a rule that I think is beautiful, but he says pursue something, or pursue what is meaningful, which is rule 7. He says pursue what is meaningful. I totally agree with this, but I'm pretty sure the whole hour is him talking about religious ideology and whatnot, and I'm just like, okay. And not only do I just get lost in it because I don't have I'm not Catholic, or I don't have a Catholic background, so I don't even know the text really. So for me, it was just where I got lost. It was where I stopped being so like, things stopped making sense to me when it kept going in that direction. It's not that I didn't understand it. It's just that it didn't really get in there. You know, it's just maybe it's just the way I learned. But again, I much preferred him telling me the example of sitting across yourself and how I could kind of break that down in my head and go through how amazing that is just to see yourself as your employee, and more importantly, you or your boss. Anywho, just to de-escalate tensions, mug of the sitting. But yeah, I remember way back when I first heard about this book, which was from PewDiePie, he mentioned that was one of his criticisms, is when it gets religious, it comes across, it kind of starts, for me, it starts getting muddy, and that's not to say religion is bad or anything like that, it's to say that that just doesn't connect with me, whereas I'm sure if you are, then it would greatly connect with you. So maybe that's just give and take what you enjoy and what you gather from things. And yeah, I'm gonna get a bunch of comments saying, Grant, are you Catholic or religious in any way, or are you atheist? And I'm just like, it's complicated. It's complicated. Short answer, maybe, probably. Nah. Anyways, so one by one, I would like to go through all of these rules. We're not gonna go into every nitty-gritty thing that he does, because each rule is like an hour to 2 hours long, which is, I mean, it sounds a lot, but honestly, it's amazing, because if someone's going to tell you that this is something that you should live by, then they should have a perfectly well thought out argument about why that is the case. And if it takes any less than an hour, then it's probably not a good rule. So yes, I think this is valid, and also great. Again, I haven't heard no one complain about like the book being long. You know, it goes by fast. Again, I've read it like 3 times or listened to it. Let's not put myself on too high of a pedestal, okay? Anyways, my flies undone. No one told me. Thank you so much. Anyways, rule 1 is, and I got this wrong I think last time, stand up straight with your shoulders back. See, now I'm kind of weird, and my nipples start popping if I do this, so I would rather not, to say the least. But the reason, or the whole thing that he talks about this, and it's, again, this is just going to be the battle for this entire video, but he talks a lot about weirdly domination culture, I believe was what it's called, and it's found in shrimp. Yeah, I know the book starts off really weird. He starts going in on shrimp for whatever reason. And he goes through how they have a domination society, so that the people that are the most aggressive and the most strong and things like that acquire the most land, kind of, but also women and all these other things. By women, it's like fish women, which is weird to say the least, because their whole society and eggs and shit are just fucking weird. Anyways, mammals all the way, baby. Anyways, again, I can only say what I got from all these. Having read the chapters many times, I can't say that I got what he meant me to have out of it necessarily, but this is just what I got out of it. So hopefully you'll forgive me if you've gotten something else out of it. For me, it entirely means holding yourself and being confident about who you are, and realizing the value of how important it is to carry yourself like the man you envision yourself being. If that makes any sense. So if you envision yourself being like this, I don't think anybody envisions themselves being this pathetic, wimpy thing. I think in an ideal scenario, you'd be like, I wish I was confident, I was strong, I had every step I took had purpose, had meaning, and you'd carry yourself like that. And I think that's what he kind of gets at. And then he goes even further to say, the classic omen where, like, if you pretend to smile, eventually that does something. Eventually you'll smile, and maybe by virtue of you even faking this smiling, or being happy, or any of these things, that will actually bring you to a place where you are happy, And that kind of example that I don't think he gave, but what I came up with was, say if you're really like, for me personally, I have a bad case of like resting bitch face, where if I'm just like neutral, I look pissed, I look very mad, and most people don't approach me. But in high school, I started just doing my best to hold a smile and just like not even to be happy, just try to be neutral. And then lo and behold, I noticed people started talking to me more and interacting with me more. And then I was like, oh, I'm actually feeling more happy just because I was pretending to, because my outlook reflected that outlook upon others. So others kept coming up to me and being like, hi. And I was like, oh, this never happens to me. What's going on? But it's because you faked it, and then eventually you somehow made it. This rule can't always be implied, or that saying can't always be applied with everything. It's just more of a mirror. You get sometimes what you pay for and all that. Anyways, hold yourself tall and whatnot. I like this rule a lot. I sometimes lean forward because I want to get on top of the mic, and I don't want it to be too far away because the audio sounds trash if that sometimes happens. So yeah, yeah, we're gonna put along. Second rule: treat yourself like you are. Oh yeah, this one's really good. Treat yourself like you are someone that you are responsible for caring for, I believe, or helping, sorry. Treat yourself like you were someone that you were responsible for helping. This is amazing because it tackles, I think, the fundamental issue within so many of, honestly, my generation of people, which is people who have been on social media a ton, and maybe people who have been bullied and whatnot, and all these other things, which is just the insane number, and it keeps growing, of people that hate themselves, like, or at least hate a part of themselves enough to warrant hating yourself, yeah, it's the idea of like, okay, well, you treat yourself pretty shitty, and if you don't think that's the case, then just put yourself and switch roles. Maybe you weren't that person. If you're that vicious to yourself, what happens if you put someone you cared about and had a vest and wanted to get better? What would happen then? If you treated that person the same way you treat yourself, then you're like, oh, that'd be pretty shitty. So it's like, exactly. So you should treat the person that you have a vested interest and you want to do better. Say if you have your partner or your brother or anything like that you were responsible for taking care of. How would you treat them? How would you build them up? How would you do that? You should treat yourself that exact same way. Now I'm all for like pushing past your limits and striving to be better, but I think that's a lie that people sell themselves, is that in order for you to push past your limits, to become better, you have to destroy yourself. You have to hate yourself. You have to be rough on yourself. You have to be cruel to yourself. And I don't think that's true. I think it can be true, but I think for the most part, I don't think it's necessary to achieve great things and to be good, Rule 3. This one I told you guys about, which I really liked. Make friends who want the best for you. And again, this was one of the ones where I really liked his example. Again, the examples he gives to me, I'm like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. But again, like almost like 80% is him talking about religious things. And again, it's fine. I just personally, I'm like, okay, I get the symbology of it. Okay, an example, perfect, fucking yes, perfect for me. And of course, his example he gives for the whole make friends with people who want the best for you is, if you can ever tell when a person doesn't want the best for you, is take yourself out of the equation and instead put someone that you truly care about in that place. So again, if you have a friend that drinks severely, is just generally not very consistent, very random. Sometimes, a lot of times, pulls you in a direction that gets you in trouble and whatnot. But you're with him because he's your friend. You've known him for a long time. You know, whatever you I don't know. You hanged out in high school, and you don't have many friends, so you want to keep that friend, right? But then if you change you out of that, and then you say, okay, well, what if this friend was friends with my brother? And then you're like, oh shit, he drinks a lot. He goes to parties tons. He drags me there, and I find myself in weird situations. The police came last time that happened, and you put your brother in that situation. You're like, oh shit, if my brother would have gotten messed up by this person, I wouldn't want that person to be around my brother or my father, or my mom, depending on each scenario, you know. So then you'd be like, oh, okay, I guess that person's not probably good for me, and that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, because it's like, well, yeah, but you still want to stand by your friends, you know. You still want to be there for people, especially people that you deem to be worthy to be there for. But I think that's the problem. I think people too often don't be there for the. There's no right person, but there is a right person, I think. You know, you should be there for the people that have a vested interest in wanting you to be better. Why are you being there for the people that don't have any interest in you getting better, you know? Why do you always have to pull them out of the fire? You know, maybe you're actually doing damage by pulling them out of the fire every single time. Wouldn't you want a friend that pulls you out of the fire, and vice versa? Yeah, that one to me was, again, I've always kind of, but again, some of these I don't really have too much of a problem with, because I've always been pretty good about, like, if something is toxic for me or bad, just chopping it off. Just get away from me. I don't want this anymore. I'm getting better at that. We used to have some really negative ass friends. But when you finally look in the mirror and you're like, you're doing really nothing for me, and I'm always the butt end of the joke, you can go fuck yourself kind of mentality, which is, you know, yeah. Anyways, we're dragging ass a little bit. Rule 5, do not let, this one's more of a parenting thing, but it says, do not let your child do anything that would make you dislike them. This one I read twice, which is funny because I have no kids, but yeah, this one's hard to explain because it's a lot more like involved and going into like the psyche of children and like, yeah, but like how discipline should kind of work, because kids, when they're in their first like 3, you know the saying terrible twos. Well, the reason why that's the case, he explains, is that kids in that time period are trying to find out what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. And he goes into all that, and he also goes into the idea of, yeah, but basically just you want to love your child, you want to see them succeed, you want to make them better in every way. So for you to accept your, like, for instance, if you I'm pretty sure we all have known those kids who've called their mom like a bitch or something terrible, and you're like, oh my god, what is happening? When you're at a sleepover or something. And the mom just kind of shrugs it off. But it's like, but if that truly bothers you as a mother, then you should absolutely snip that in the butt by any deems necessary. Now, it's not as militant as I'm making it sound. He actually has a very good window and examples and etc. And I don't think he's preaching for anything hateful, or like for you to be like, you have to do whatever I say, you know. It's not necessarily like that. That's a rough chapter. It's hard to explain, because he also words it in a way that's like very salacious, which is, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Not too salacious, but still something to be like, wait, so if your child does something bad or that you don't like, you should stop it. What if it's something like a person being attracted to the other sex or whatever, you know? I don't think it's not that. From what I remember, I don't think it's anything like that. But I don't really, that one's weird, because that one I can't really, like, a lot of the rules I do my best to like imply onto my life, to be like, okay, great. now every day I can try to take a step forward, doing the things that he has suggested. But with that one, I'm just like, I'll have to bookmark this and come back to it at another point in time, because I have no idea right now really how to implement it. Although it was a fun read, again, learning about like the psyche of children and how he had examples, etc., about him like watching his neighbor's kid and having to like, he was terrible at going to sleep, but he found a way to do it, and all these things. Anyways, rule 6. Oh boy, this one is oh so sweet in terms of our current climate within everything, which is set your house in perfect order before you criticize the rest of the world. This is lovely. I love this one because this one I feel like everyone is so critical when they have so much shit that is in disorder, you know what I mean? Whether that be like people just bitching about everything. Everyone has an opinion on everything. And I've always been, and it's kind of helps me come to like how I feel about a lot of things, which is how I feel a lot about like, even with Let's Talks, where like this is a series where it's basically like a therapy session. I'm just like talking my head off and just trying to find out where I fit in certain parts. To me, I've always felt this way about like, when someone asks you, what's your opinion on this? And I'm always just like, I don't really know, man. And it's not because I don't want an opinion on it. It's just like, I have so many other things I'm trying to figure out and trying to get right. This is another thing that I just don't really want to have to jump into my headspace to figure out what's going on, you know? But yeah, he talks about how you need to, he goes in, this one's more of like, there's a few chapters that are more like introspective upon himself, which are like, hey, this is my experience with my friend, and his battle with, battling what is the word? Not malice. It's like not Maleficent either. It's like, don't know the word. But anyways, bad things. Battling despair, battling hate, battling people who are going down a terrible, destructive path in their life. And this was one of the ones where he was saying that make sure you constantly check yourself. This was also one of those ones that I feel like it's nice to hear, but that was always something that I feel like I did, and probably to a degree in which is too much. Maybe. Is that possible? I think it's possible. It's like a person that never leaves their house because they'd want to make sure that they're okay before they criticize anything else. But then that's also another thing where he talks about in stand up, straight with your shoulders held back, which is not being afraid to, have an opinion and to like, you say your opinion and to feel like you even if nobody listens, for you to still stand up and speak your opinion, your voice. Because I find myself falling back on that sometimes where I'm just like, never mind. Like, no one will listen, so why will I say it, which is a bad kind of headspace to be in. And so but then I know plenty of dudes who also have that same problem with women, where they're like, oh, I won't go up to her because she won't like me. It's like the same thing, except with everybody, and it's not a good headspace to be in. So that was a rule that hit me really hard. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to really work on this, and any possible moment I have, try to speak clearly and to speak, even if they're having a side conversation as I'm explaining my point. Fuck it, I'll still see my point through. Fucking full force. Let's do this. I'm thirsty. Let me get a drink. Okay. How's that time? Ooh, it's not great. Yeah, honestly, I want to talk more about that one, but I don't know what the words are, if that makes any sense. So set your house in perfect order before you criticize the rest of the world. That one to me is also incredibly subjective. Not subjective, sorry, obvious. Not obvious either. What's the word? Yes. Yes, that is incredibly like, that. Yes, perfect. Exactly. You should always make sure that you everyone can criticize anybody, but for you to actually imply, like, it's one of those things that I'm sure everyone's been there, and it's always frustrating when like your parent or anyone around you who's an authority figure who tells you don't do this, but then proceeds to do this. It's like, don't smoke. I'm smoking, but don't do that. Why? Because I made the bad choice. But so you're going to continue to make a bad choice, and it goes on and it goes forth. That could be anything. That could be also a person being like, hey mom, why can't I have this toy? And then for mom to be like, because I said so, because you can't, and because that's it. Instead of your parent being like, we don't have the money right now, I literally can't buy you it, and frankly, you haven't earned that toy, something like that. But anyways, that's like going through the thing of explaining your point of view rather than the smoking thing was the right example about being like, well, maybe you should clean up your house before you tell others how to shape theirs, Anyways, rule 7, pursue what is meaningful. This is not it. Maybe it is. I think it's rule 7 and 8 back to back, which to me were the frustrating ones because that's where he really hammers in religious ideology kind of things. Which what I mean by that is he'll go into like the Bible, and he makes a good argument for why that's incredibly valid, because the Western world is mostly based on this precursor of like, this is why a lot of people have this morality swing, is because your ancestors did the grunt work to bring you to these morality places, to these moral places, so to speak. And he goes through the stories about how this and this happened. He goes into examples of like scientific studies, which I love, with scientific studies where they're like, hey, this is something, we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's rule 10. Anyways, we'll talk about the scientific study when we get to rule 10. Anyways, rule 7, pursue what is meaningful. Again, this is not what he says necessarily, but this is, well, it probably is what he says, but this is what I took from it at a base level. Pursue what is meaningful. This is one that he talks greatly about. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's you know, you can pursue a job that pays you really well, and that's fine if you have some sort of end goal, which is to get to a place where you can build up enough money to where you can, whether that be go independent and make your own business, or just have enough money in the back burner so when you reach 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever, you'll have enough to pursue whatever art thing you want. That's all good and fine, but it's more important that, oh man, yeah, I think I just clicked too with what he said. He talked about how once you wow, it was like once you are happy and once you are okay, maybe then you can make sure others are okay and others will do well, and etc. So it's this idea of like, oh, the rules might be getting jumbled a little bit in my head. So many quotes, so many words. I don't know which exactly they're tied to, but it's all fine because they're all important. You know, even every little quote makes sense. And again, this is the one that was because when you say pursue what is meaningful, a lot of it was backed by like a kind of a morality, like a morality kind of thing. Like when you do something that is meaningful, that gives back to the world, that is productive for all of mankind. That empowers you, because you know you're doing something that matters, that you feel like you are supposed to do, rather than the hamster wheel cycle that you feel like you're running, the nothing that you are creating, that kind of thing. And he ties it to a morality that he finds within religion, it seems. And then that's also the other rule, which is rule 8, which is tell the truth, which this one is great, but again, it's weird because I think, again, I haven't read that chapter in a while, but I agree with it, but he ties it to, like, I believe religious things, where to me, I don't know, it kind of like that's the whole omen that's always, I don't know, confused me a little bit, or just it's like a religious question in general, which is, shouldn't you want to be good and be happy and be just because you know it to be something that you would want and you would want done on to you, not because of some sort of weird plane of existence that is beyond the clouds and has miracles, you know? It's like, that seems like a very weird, vain thing, you know? Shouldn't you want to be good for the sake of being good and kind to others, not because of this religious thing? And I'm not sure, again, I don't remember the chapter, so I'm not sure if that's the argument that he's making at all. So I don't want to mischaracterize him or anything like that, but yeah, that's to me, again, I like the base rule. The examples given were a bit weird. Maybe I need to re-listen to that chapter, because I remember that was the one where I was like, it was just the fact that it was like so much religious stuff right back to back that it kind of made me like, nothing's feeling good anymore in terms of like making sense and making it feel, and that's not to say that like religion is like spikes or something like terrible. It's just something that it wasn't, everything else was making so much sense and was so impactful, and then that happened and I was just like, we're getting muddy. That's what it felt like. We're getting not clear. But I don't know. Then again, those are probably the most subjective questions, not subjective, like difficult questions to answer, which is, why should you tell the truth, and why should you find why should you do what is meaningful? You know, why shouldn't you do something that's efficient? Why shouldn't you lie? What if you're gonna hurt somebody's feelings? You know, these conundrums. I think I should read those ones again, because I think I just caught them at a bad time too. I was very upset in the middle of that week, and I was reading chapters about something. I was like, grr. Anyways, 7 and 8. Those are the ones that I was kind of just like. I do like them both in theory. like if I could hypothesize my own weirdness about them, about like, well, why should you tell the truth, and what is the morality background for me about why you should do that. And then same thing with do what is meaningful, because I both agree with both of those statements. But I just found his reasoning wasn't like syncing up with my reason and resolve and things like that. But anyways, rule 9. Oh, this one's good. Assume the person you're listening to knows something you don't. Now, this was one of those ones where when I was listening to it, I was just like, I've been saying that for years. I love that to pieces. You know, I was the kid in school who was always paying attention and trying to listen and trying to make sure I understood things and you know, respect your elders and all these things. But then, what do you call it? Fast forward to current day, where I was just like, I found myself not listening. I found myself not truly listening to someone. And again, this is what makes his book so amazing, is that he goes into like, okay, well, you may think you're listening, but this is why you're not. And one of the things that an exercise that he gives people is to check if you're really good at actually absorbing and listening to another person's point of view is to, say if you're having a discussion with someone, you both have different points of view, you should be able to echo back to that person their point of view to what is satisfactory towards them or for them. So you could be like, okay, this is my position on this is your position on this, is this your position? And then you lay it out, and then they say, nope, that's not my position, this is, and then you say, okay, so your position is, and they say yes, and I'm like, good, this is my position. And then if they do the same for you, then hopefully you'll get closer to understanding where you are, and then you can actually start going and like figuring out one by one which thing is. It's like the difference between trying to understand and break down and figure out something, and then the opposite is just trying to win the argument, having zero interest in actually talking, but just instead victory, which is not, well, it's not good. It's not a good mindset. It's gonna be a very lonely world for you, I think, if you run that way. But no, I agree with this completely. But what I was saying was I found myself in my current life, which I usually think I'm pretty good at listening to people. I love listening to people, but I also find that when it comes to learning, which is kind of like listening, if not very, very the same. When it comes to learning things, I'm very quick to question and quick to, how do I put it? Not listen. When I'm trying to learn something, I'm very quick to be like, but what? And even when I'm like, even when it's not learning, when it is listening, I can find myself, especially if I disagree with someone strongly, wanting to jump at them, being like, well, no. Instead of just sitting back and just trying to absorb, and then coming back and saying, is this what you believe? And then saying, okay, well, this is why I believe this, and this is why this counters your opinion. But anyways, yes, this is like the biggest thing ever. Like the rule 9 is probably one of the bigger ones, which is listen to people, or specifically listen to people like they know something that you don't, which is an awesome rule. Anyways, 3 more rules left. This is the one that he talks about a study, which is this is also the last one that starts to make clear sense, which is rule 10: be precise in your speech. Oh my God, my arms, my body, Christ alive. But yes, this is be precise in your speech. This was the one that I was talking about that has a study, which was, it's like, I seen it all over the place, a lot on YouTube specifically, but it's the idea that the scientists ran this experiment about these people passing a basketball back and forth. You're supposed to count how many times this group of people passed this basketball. It's like 4 or 5 people. And you're supposed to count how many times the basketball was passed. And I believe it's a bounce pass specifically. And then you're supposed to count. Most people came to the like 15, 16, 13, whatever it was. But then the person who was running this test told the people, did you guys notice the gorilla that walked right through? And the people were like, what are you talking about? That's impossible. But then you walk back, and it's because, and lo and behold, there was a gorilla that walked straight through the film. I'm sure you guys have seen that science experiment kind of thing. But the idea is that you're super, like, it's, you know how depth is in video games, how you can only focus on one thing and everything kind of becomes blurry? It's because we only have a certain amount of, like, I don't know what it is, like brain power. It's some sort of very big word for your eye. RAM. I don't know. Whatever. Point being is that it's that kind of thing. And that's the example he pulled from that. But be precise in your speech. again, the last. Okay, well, to be fair, the last two and then the third one also starts to jump into the deep end a little bit. Be precise in your speech. Again, what I would take from that is, and again, to piggyback off the previous one, which is listen to people, basically. Listen to people like they have something that you could learn from. It comes from that same place about like be precise in what you're saying and try to understand your emotions so that people can help you pursue anything or help you or at least understand you. So to me, that's amazing. Be precise in your speech. I gotta read that chapter again. But the last two guys are a lot. The last two, it feels like Jordan Peterson hit a wall where he's like, I don't want to do 14 rules for life, so we're gonna do a solid 12 because hot damn, are there so many like micro rules in these last two chapters. But anyways, the 11th rule is called do not bother kids while they are skateboarding. And if memory serves, he goes into this he talks about how he used to watch kids skateboarding and how things that males like to do that are otherwise dangerous, whereas women would not. And I don't even remember really. I kind of do. It's just a lot. That chapter kicked my ass. I'll be honest. I was just like, same with the 12th. I'm just like, oh my god, it's so much. It's not so like one. It's not just like, hey, be better than you were, or compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Sorry, compare yourself to who you were. It's not like one-off questions. It's like, no. Do not bother kids whether rollerblading or whatever, skateboarding. And I'm like, oh shit, what does this mean? Anyways, I don't know. I do know. He goes into, I think he talks about how people are too soft on certain people, and how, I think that was also what he talks about, an overbearing mother, and how that can be not great, because you're supposed to be somewhat dangerous. You're supposed to try things that are otherwise not just so safe. Whether that is to understand why they are not safe and to truly cement that in your brain or something else. He does a far better job. I'm honestly burnt out right now. I filmed a lot today. I'm just like, also I woke up at like 5. And I'm just like, nah fam, I'm not here. I'm trying to be, doing my best, doing my goddamn best. The 12th rule is pet a cat when you see one on the street. That is rule 12. I reiterate, pet a cat when you see one on the street. Yeah, I'm not even gonna mess with you guys. I remember nothing of this chapter. I just remember it being like, again, there's just so much there. It's almost like he has so many ending thoughts, but like he would need another 7 rules and more chapters, so instead he just consolidates them, I think. Maybe that's not the case. Again, I mostly read the ones that I was super didn't understand, like I didn't really connect with in terms of like why. Like there's some that I connected with and I was just like, oh okay, I do that constantly already. You know, whether it is make sure your house is in perfect order before you criticize the world. I try to always check myself before I do anything really. So there were certain ones like that where I was just like, okay, I like it a lot, but I kind of already knew a lot of this, if that makes any sense. But then there was some that I was like, huh, okay, all right, I'm gonna need to read these a lot more. So I read them like 4 more times, which is insane. But then there were other ones that were like 11 and 12, which were those special cases of me being like, this is a lot. Like this is why I still need to read the book again, like to read those last 2 at least again. You guys, I'd be like, well, Grin, clearly you still have a lot of work to do. Why are you making the damn video? And I'd reply to you being like, man, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I do know. I want to get to the next book as well. As much as I do want to come back to these, like this is one of the 12 Rules for Life. I feel like is one of those books where it's a self-help book, right? So the idea is that hopefully you read and then apply to your life. Read and then apply for your life. I've read almost all of it and applied 8 rules. Wait, 7 rules to it. And well, maybe more than 8. Anyways, a lot of rules to it. But I'm also kind of like, I don't want to have to go back and read the other 3. We'll get there at some point, but not quite. Anyways, so the main reason why I wanted to make this video is also because I want to show you guys or explain to you guys what I feel about things, and of course, hold up the ideology of this series, which is to be a therapy. for my mind to just talk for long enough to where I find out where I arrive at certain things and whatnot. And maybe in doing so, you guys can understand some things about yourself, asking yourself similar questions and whatnot. Who knows? I have no idea why you guys watch the series, honestly. It's more just me being like, I guess this, you know? But yes, the next book I want to read as well that's also a thing. I want to learn more. This book really lit the fire under my ass to be like, I like learning things, and I haven't learned things in a while, and I want to keep learning things, you know? So the next book I'm reading is a little bit less of a departure from the self-help book things, which I do want to keep doing because I really love the whole idea of understanding the self and understanding the mind and to a certain degree the soul. Yeah, but the next book I'm reading is The Americas Before, I believe is what it's called, and it's all about like I think his name is Grant Hancock's proof and whatnot about what happened way before us. Like, there are apparently ancient civilizations that used to rock around planet Earth, which is wicked, and I want to read it. Is that a mosquito? You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. I lost him in the blackness of my desk. Son of a bitch. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I am thoroughly spent. Thank you so much for hearing me ramble for such a long time. My God. But that was 12 Rules for Life. Everything that I got from the rules kind of burnt out there the last 2 or 3. So forgive me. Again, lovely book if anyone's wanting to improve themselves, or this is a book that really helps you improve yourself, yes, but also understand parts of yourself as well. And it's done in a way that isn't, to me, arrogant and kind of like has a lot of woo-woo. Instead, it's in a way that is very helpful and backed by examples most of the time, and reasoning, you know. Anyways, I would highly suggest if anybody wants it. I got it for I think $19, maybe something like that. My voice is going. Subscribe button. No, not about me, to my right. And then further over there are more videos if you would care to watch, if you are a new person, which if you are, by God, thank you for watching a 40-minute video from a stranger. I appreciate you to pieces. Anyways, thank you so much for your time, everybody, and goodbye.